Good evening. I'd like to call to order the June 1st, 2015 Lake Washington School District Board of Directors. This has been a fast year. All board members are present and accounted for, and I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we're going to move into always our very favorite time in our business meetings is recognition, but especially today because it's going to be seeing scholarships being awarded to students and staff. So,
Great.
Exciting.
Well, we're excited, as Jackie said, and we've got our PTSA Council President, Judy East. I'd like to welcome you, Judy, to the podium, and I'll just turn it right over to you.
There we go. On behalf of Lake Washington PTSA Council, I'd like to thank all of you for your ongoing support of our organization. Without it, we could not achieve our mission to support our local PTAs and parents within our school district. Thank you, Diane. And advocate for the health, well-being, and education of every child. So not only are we honored to serve our amazing local PTAs and the work in their communities, we're also proud of what Council's done this year. We've actually started a couple new programs, which we're very excited about. One, we started our brown bag lunches to provide information and networking between parents and essential resources such as the school district and Lake Washington Schools Foundation, emergency preparation, advocacy groups, and more. And we had over 50 parents attend our informational meeting on Common Core in September, which was presented by both Washington State PTA volunteers and John Holman and Matt Montebianco from the district. It was pretty great. And our other essential programs include our Parent Resource Fair, the reorganization in partnership with HopeLink for pantry packs, an all-district family fun event at a Sounders game. And we're going to do that again. October 4th is the date of the game, so you'll have to keep your eyes open and your calendars open for that day. Our hardworking special needs group, our National PTA Reflections art program, parent education programs, emergency prep committee, and our wonderful student and teacher scholarships. And as a token of our appreciation and in lieu of a gift, we have donated $1,000 to the scholarship fund in the board's name to honor, in honor of what we celebrate this evening. So with that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to our scholarship committee chair, Wendy DeLong.
Thank you, Judy. Good evening. I'm honored to be here representing the Lake Washington PTSA Council. With me are committee members Shelley Flores, Desiree Michael, Karen Perez, Susan Swift, and Gia Villavicencio. Got it. Our other member, Cindy Poon, could not be with us tonight. And we have Judy East here, who will present the actual certificates to our recipients. Together, we all have the most delightful job in the PTSA Council, giving money to deserving young people and also to some of our wonderful district teachers to help them all fulfill their dreams and goals. Thank you to the school board for this opportunity to publicly recognize these outstanding students and dedicated teachers who are recipients of scholarships this year. The Lake Washington PTSA Council Scholarship Program has been supported for over 35 years through donations from the PTA units in the school district and from the proceeds of the Council's Scholarship Basket Auction, which takes place each December. Since 2002, we have received support for one scholarship dedicated to someone going into education, and that is funded by the Lake Washington Education Association. And we have another that is supported by Judy and Hank Klein in honor of their daughter, who would have been a 2002 East Lake graduate. We are most appreciative of their continuing support for the PTSA scholarship program and for the students who benefit from this generosity. This year we have a new scholarship in memory of Jane Wieringa, a longtime teacher at Norman Rockwell Elementary School, Funding for this scholarship is from her friends and family, honoring her by helping a new teacher work toward their teaching certificate. Our student scholarships are for $1,000 each, are awarded based on community involvement, academic achievement, extracurricular activities, and future goals. Teachers receive $500 for assistance with ongoing professional education. They are selected for their dedication to children and youth, their community service, and how their continuing education will benefit the students and schools. This year, we were able to award 16 student scholarships and 2 staff scholarships. At this time, it is our pleasure to recognize these remarkable recipients. And I invite Karen Perez will begin.
It's just going to, has Kaylee, okay. So, our first recipient this evening is Kaylee McGuigan, and for the Eastlake High School Scholarship. Kaylee has made an impact at her school and in her community with work rooted in service and creativity. Kaylee's artwork is on display at Eastlake. Her list of activities and community involvement is extensive. Notably, through the Junior Orthopedic Guild, she and her team raised funds and resources for patients and their families. Kaylee will attend the University of Notre Dame in the fall, majoring in business with concentration in marketing. Our next recipient is Liam Stewart. Liam is receiving the Dr. Don Saul Scholarship. If you want to come forward. Liam is passionate about American politics and the American experience, despite, or maybe because of, the fact that he was born in Ireland. He says that the best way he can think of to give back to his community is through political service. He has actually been giving back to his community throughout his high school career with a focus on inclusion and outreach, especially through the Eastlake High School Rotary Interact Club, which he helped found. Liam plans to attend the University of Notre Dame in the fall, majoring in political science and public policy. Congratulations. Our third recipient is Chase White, who is receiving a PTSA Council Scholarship. Chase's hope is to have a positive effect on those around him. He founded the Homeless Outreach Program at Eastlake, HOPE for short, because he saw that through his efforts he could make a difference in the lives of others. Along with his community service achievements, he has an impressive academic record and has received awards in science and the humanities. In the fall, Chase plans to attend CU Boulder, pursuing a technical degree in physics or engineering. Congratulations.
Good evening. Madeline Mendlin, I got that out, is the recipient of the Adria Klein Memorial Scholarship. Madeline is graduating from Eastlake High School and is the embodiment of an accomplished, balanced scholar. She has the opportunity to impact and maybe even save the lives of others through her passion and drive. Madeline is a National Merit Commended Scholar who has earned a 4.0 GPA while taking a rigorous course load. She's a champion wake surfer as well as a member of the soccer team and the tennis team. She finds balance in her life through math, an odd sort of balance, but she likes that, sports, and giving back to others. This makes her a truly well-rounded person, a scholar, a mentor, a musician, a debater, an athlete, a volunteer, a leader, and a worker. Madeline will be attending the University of Southern California studying biomedical engineering. At USC, she is a Viterbi Fellow going immediately into a 4-year research program. Congratulations. Clark Ellis is the recipient of the Juanita High School Scholarship. Clark is a gifted student with a unique balance of intellect and curiosity. He has maintained a 4.0 GPA while taking a number of challenging AP classes at Juanita High School. Aside from academics, Clark is a member of the Technology Student Association. He writes articles for the student newspaper and is a member of the National Honor Society. Clark is also a very accomplished musician. He plays trombone in the Wind Symphony pep band and jazz band at Juanita High School. His hard work and consistent practice has led to numerous music awards. Clark will be attending George Fox University in the fall, where he will determine what he will study there. Catherine Adams, also known as Katie, is receiving the Lake Washington Education Association Karen Bates Scholarship. Katie is a diligent and determined learner. She started taking rigorous classes in the Cambridge program as a freshman at Juanita High School. As a result of her hard work, Katie was awarded an Outstanding Cambridge Learners Award in 9th and 10th grade. She's also a member of the Juanita High School varsity swim team, dive team, and softball team. She was awarded the Swim and Dive Coaches Award, the WIAA Scholar Athlete Award, and the JHS Scholar Athlete Award. Katie also demonstrated strong leadership skills as a captain for the swim team and director of technology for the ASB. Katie will attend the University of Portland to pursue an education degree. Her goal is to become a high school science teacher or a leadership teacher. Great. Congratulations. Emily Peterson is the recipient of the Lake Washington PTSA Council at-Large Scholarship. Emily is graduating from Juanita High School. Emily is focused and hardworking student. She maintains a 4.0 GPA throughout the high school career and continues to challenge herself by taking various AP classes. Advanced placement, for those of you who don't know what AP stands for. As a result of her hard work, Emily was named a National Merit Scholar finalist. Congratulations. She is also a member of the National Honor Society and class cabinet. She is a musician, playing the piano in the jazz band, and is a percussionist in the concert band and pep band. She is also a dedicated athlete in cross country and track and field, and has competed in the Washington State High School Cross Country Championships in the junior and senior year. Emily will be attending the University of Portland in the fall to pursue a degree in computer science. Congratulations. Now we get to switch schools. Helen Simachek is a recipient of a Lake Washington PTSA Council at-Large Scholarship. Helen is graduating from Lake Washington High School. Helen is not only a high-achieving learner by earning a 4.0 GPA, but also a person who has a sincere intellectual curiosity that leads to a desire to acquire new knowledge and reflect on that knowledge in order to put it to practical use. These traits are exemplified in the depth and the diversity of the 8 advanced placement courses she's taken: history, mathematics, science, government, technology, and literature. Very wide base. Helen is attending the University of Virginia, where she'll be studying either economics or another social science field and exploring the possibilities that await her. Congratulations.
Good evening. Sarah Ann Wingard is receiving the Lake Washington High School Award. Sarah believes we all have a ripple effect, a legacy we leave. The legacy she leaves at LW is quite impressive. It's one of excellence, leadership, and service. During her tenure, Sarah has maintained a very high grade point average, inspired and led her volleyball team as captain, served as president of the Environmental Club, and participated in 2 service clubs, the Beta Club and a selective senior-only group called the Loyalty Club. On top of all of that, she was chosen to work as a page in the State House of Representatives. Sarah's goal in life is to help women overcome challenges like eating disorders. She will continue her journey next year as she begins studying nutrition and fitness at Colorado State University. Congratulations. Brooke Jana Robertson is receiving the Dr. L. E. Scar Scholarship. Brooke lives and breathes music. It's who she is. She has sung in her church choir for 12 years and has learned to play an incredible array of instruments: violin, clarinet, oboe, bassoon, snare drum, bass drum, and marimba. When not at rehearsal or performances, you can find her playing badminton for the Lake Washington High School team or exploring her talents in the visual arts, especially drawing and working with clay. Brooke will continue her artistic endeavors at DigiPen Institute of Technology next year, where she will study music and sound design. Congratulations. Robert Dwayne Gilliam is receiving a Lake Washington PTSA Area Council Scholarship. It's easy to see from his academic record that Robert continuously pursues excellence, but his pursuits extend far beyond the classroom. Robert genuinely enjoys making a positive impact on those around him. He has served his community through several service organizations at Lake Washington High School: the National Honor Society, the Beta Club, and the Senior Only Loyalty Club. Additionally, Robert has earned a black belt at Miller's Martial Arts Academy, and he went on to serve as an instructor there. Next year, you can find Robert studying health and exercise science at Colorado State University. Congratulations.
I get to have the distinct honor of acknowledging all of the Redmond High School students. The first is Connor York. Connor is described as a smart, tenacious, and skilled student who always strives to do better. Over the course of 4 years at Redmond High School, he has forged his own path and developed a deep love for drama and theater while being active in Redmond's ASB leadership group and maintaining a stellar 4.0 GPA. His list of outside activities includes everything from being a page at the Washington State Capitol to refereeing youth basketball games to leading youth sermons at his church. He is truly an amazing young man. Connor will be attending the University of Washington this fall to follow his math passion and plans to study accounting. Our next recipient from Redmond is Jillian Late. Jillian is receiving the Jane Broringa Memorial Scholarship for Education. Jillian is an extremely talented, organized, and motivated student who applies herself in everything she does, both at RHS and in the community. She is a member of the National Honor Society and received the AP Scholar with Distinction Award her junior year. Her love of music and singing has taken her everywhere from Benaroya Hall to San Francisco to New Orleans to perform. Through the Teaching Academy and various other volunteering efforts, Jillian has discovered a true love of teaching and will attend Western Washington University this fall to study education. Our last recipient from Redmond is Julia Doherty. It is hard to put into a short paragraph all that Julia has accomplished in her short 18 years. Her academic record shows a thoughtful and rigorous roadmap that was carried out with precision. Outside of school, Julia's devotion to the Girl Scouts of America can be seen in the support she provides to the younger Redmond community members as they prepare for their futures. This has earned her a Girl Scout of the United States Gold Award. Sorry, I knew I'd mess that one up. Her leadership activities and her academics have prepared her very well, as she has been chosen to be one out of 100 trustee scholars at the University of California, where she is planning to major in international relations and hopes to attend law school afterwards. Congratulations, Julia.
Now we go to the last school, Yotam Offit, the Tesla STEM High School Award. Yotam is a well-rounded student with interests in academics such as physics, biology, and chemistry, and in activities outside the school such as playing piano, athletics, community services, and performing stand-up comedy. A gifted problem solver with keen analytical mind, according to his physics teacher, Yotam views science as the instrument for change that drives the world to a better state. With research as his dream occupation, he plans to pursue studying physics and engineering at the University of Washington. Congratulations. Madison Minks is the recipient for the Bob Hughes Scholarship Award. Madison from Tesla STEM High School is a student with amazing talents and accomplishments. She is most proud of founding and being the editor-in-chief of the STEM Journal, her high school's scientific journal that showcases student research, which is presented to communities, business, and academic leaders. An incredibly hardworking student, a natural-born leader, and extremely talented in areas of scientific analysis and research with an innate ability to study independently and ask thought-provoking questions are of the highest caliber according to her science teachers. Madison's love of problem-solving has driven her enthusiasm for environmental engineering. In college, she plans to be involved with Dartmouth College Engineering Entrepreneurship Program and Thayer School of Engineering's Human-Centered Design, where she will be given the opportunity to incorporate project-centered, interdisciplinary learning from engineering course to design course, meeting her goal to create readily adaptable environmental solutions. Congratulations.
And I will say welcome to our Tesla School, our Tesla STEM recipients. This is their first graduating class, so this is the first year in our scholarship program. Okay, finally, we recognize our staff recipients. Kenzie Smyrnas, I'm sorry. I should wear my glasses, I suppose. Kenzie grew up in the Lake Washington School District, so she's very honored to now be a peer among those who fueled her passion for teaching. She has discovered that her favorite part of the day is teaching literacy skills to her first graders at Juanita Elementary. She will be building her teaching skills and learning new techniques as she pursues her Master's of Education degree with a reading endorsement at the University of Washington. Congratulations, Mackenzie. And our second staff recipient is Paul Miller. Paul has been a teacher at Juanita High School from the very beginning of his career in 1998. He has taught every history-related class in the curriculum and loves them all. Always involved, he has coached sports and been a club advisor for Model UN and Key Club. He was an integral part of the development and success of Future School, a school within a school at Juanita High that provides support for struggling students. Paul will be working toward his administrative certification, where he hopes to impact an even greater number of students. And we hope that Lake Washington School District can find a place for him when he gets that certification. Hint, hint. Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all of our scholarship recipients. We know that you will make the most of your college years and find success in your future. We also know that such fine young adults do not magically appear. So will all of the parents please rise and be recognized for a job well done. Thank you for giving us your brightest and best. They're terrific. We know you will miss them next year, but we know that you are also excited for them and proud to see them take this next step. Good luck to you all. Enjoy your new experiences. Study hard, but have fun. Best wishes to all of you. Thank you. And I'll actually ask you to hold for just a second in case anybody wants to snap a quick picture. And one other announcement, those of you who are from Juanita High School, before you leave, please return your certificate to me. You will receive it back, but not tonight.
Boy, she's taking it back. While you all are taking pictures, I'd like to congratulate all of you students on your receiving the scholarships and congratulate you on all your accomplishments. Boy, as I listen to what all you do, I don't know how you find time to sleep. And we definitely want to wish you all very well in your upcoming endeavors and a new adventure in education as you move forward from here. And we truly thank all of you for coming tonight. It's always great to have students here and parents, so thank you so much for taking time to do that. And before we have you go out the door, I just want to take one small moment of personal privilege here from the board. Judy East is our PTA Council President, and this is a position that folks don't realize the amount of time that takes to be a Council President, and she's done it by herself this year. So we have a little thank you to her from all of us. These, my dear, are for you. Oh, you're so sweet. And Judy is continuing and will be president again next year, so she's back for another year. And I know all of you probably have things that you might want to do at home. Not that we don't like an audience. You're welcome to stay, but we also understand that you might want to do some things at home. Maybe get some sleep. So please feel free. We'll just take a couple minutes and you can feel free to get up and head out. Boy, they exited quickly. That was fast. Am I louder than normal back there? I'm hearing me loud in my head, which is not an uncommon occurrence, let me tell you. But I'm hearing myself sound loud.
But she's much better now.
Thank you, yes. My husband and family would tell you, yes, that's not a common comment, would be loud. Okay. I didn't get anything for public comment, so I'm assuming no one signed up, and I just will take this moment that if anyone in the audience had wanted to speak to the board this evening and didn't sign up, this would be your opportunity to let me know.
Once, going twice.
Okay. Next, our consent agenda. We'll move into our business part of the meeting, and it's just always great to see the students. I'm sorry, I have to go back to the wow factor there. They really do. You know, this is just a small percentage of what we have come out of our schools, and the places they're going for college and what they're going to study and all they do is just an amazing. So I guess I should say thank you to the Lake Washington School District for helping provide them with their education. Consent agenda approval.
So moved.
Second.
Tracy, would you pull the board?
Chris?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Siri?
Yes. Okay. And donations are tab 7.
Tab 7, we have $16,499 in donations tonight. We have a $1,180 donation from the Robert Frost PTSA to Frost Elementary to support field trips. $8,330 from the Samantha Smith PTSA to Smith Elementary to purchase a reader board, books for the library, equipment for PE, and classroom supplies. $5,369 from the Laura Ingalls Wilder PTSA to Wilder Elementary to provide stipends for Math Olympiad and choir. And finally, a $1,620 donation from the Tesla STEM PTSA to Tesla STEM High School to purchase electronic component sets for computer programming and an electronic cutting machine. All total, we've got $16,499 in donations.
And thank you to our continued contributions and donations from our PTAs. And I say every time, our schools are more thankful than you all know, and appreciate the fact that not only what we see here, but the ongoing day-to-day contributions that are done in the buildings. Okay, non-consent. Our first item is regarding world language competency test fees.
Great. So if I could draw your attention to tab 8. In 2010, OSPI, the State School Directors Association, and the State Board of Education developed sample policy regarding competency credits for world languages that allow students with proficiency in a language other than English to earn up to 4 world language credits. Districts across the state, including our district, adopted policies. And over the past 3 years, students in our district have completed competency testing through the University of Washington Language Lab and neighboring school districts. In 2014-15, this year, these sites have actually begun to close their assessment sessions to out-of-district students due to capacity constraints. So to date, we have not offered our own world language competency testing opportunities for students. Our students have gone outside of our district for those opportunities, although when they bring in their evidence of competency credit certificate, they are awarded that credit. So as a result of this, students who were registering to take the proficiency tests are right now unable to find testing sites. So in an effort to respond to this situation, we're coordinating several full-scale world language assessment days throughout 2015-16. Excuse me. Pardon me. Beginning in June this year with a field test to understand all aspects of what it will take to scale testing sessions. So given that there's a number of tests in use and each specific language has a test type that goes with it, we've got a chart here on the situation recommendation that summarizes the fees charged by our neighboring school districts for various tests. In addition, the chart includes fees recommended for our competency testing. The fees cover a portion of the cost of the actual testing materials and the test administration. We will need to support these costs of about $20,000 annually. So in researching the practices of neighboring districts who have been offering sites and test opportunities for students, all are using general fund monies to support this testing. So as you can see, we are bringing a recommendation for fees to the board this evening and also recommending a reduced testing rate for students who receive free or reduced lunch. So the chart in front of you shows what the fees are in place at have been in place at Seattle and the University of Washington, as well as Bellevue, Everett, and Edmonds School District. So the recommendation is for the board to approve the fees for world language competency testing beginning in June 2015, which will allow us to provide testing opportunities for students in our own district. Otherwise, they won't have the opportunity to test given the lack of capacity in other testing sites.
Do we know how many students have taken advantage of this?
I will ask Matt Montebianco to come to the podium. Matt, as you know, is our associate superintendent. He's been working on this proposal, and he may have that data, or we may need to come back to the board.
I want to come back with a little bit more refined data. What we know so far is we have at least 40 students that have earned credit in the last year using this practice. I think that number is low, and I think it's actually higher based on what we see in other districts, but I wanted to confirm that.
And the variety of tests, because the titles, all these acronyms don't really say what they do, is the students choose the test? I guess that was the piece that was confusing to me, of how as a parent or a student, how would you know what to go take?
It's a great question. It is a little confusing. Some of the tests are only, you're able to only test certain tests depending on who the producer is. So Alta, for instance, which provides the stamp tests, has 7 or 8 languages that they provide. They may not have a language in Hindi, for instance, and so you have to go to another test that would provide that.
Totally naive question. I seem to vaguely recall that there's such a thing as an AP test in foreign languages. Is there such a thing? And if so, wouldn't that qualify as competency? I just don't see them listed here, and I'm curious.
The AP test would be typically for students who are pursuing further levels within the language within school. So it's typically their 5th or 6th course in Spanish. We do have AP, for instance, being done. This was really designed, I don't know that the summary said this, for native speakers who have grown up in 2 languages in a bilingual or trilingual situation where they are already fluent in a language, as opposed to trying to gain competency through an AP test.
I think it's knowing that we have the 2 world language credit, this is a capacity for the students to be able to take a test and get those credits through that means based on their native language. So it's a very valuable component in which to be able to provide flexibility in our kids' schedules.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm really just asking if a kid's capable of passing 5th year Spanish with an AP test, would we require them to take one of these 2?
No. So as Matt said, this policy was developed at the state level, and then we developed, adopted it at the district level in an effort to provide students who are potentially native speakers to earn credit without having, they already know 2 languages.
And sorry,
so instead of having to take a course, they can show proficiency. Or we have students who are pursuing language courses outside, like on a Saturday.
Right.
And so they're able to test. So the students that you're speaking to are typically earning credit. They've earned credit in those.
Actually, just bypassing that. Let's say that a kid does speak as a second language at home and decides that they'd rather take the AP test. Not take a class, just take the AP test.
They can do that.
They can do that. Okay. That's.
But to earn credit, so
they don't get credit for Spanish if they pass an AP test, but they do if they pass one of these? That's preposterous. Is that a state policy or is that ours?
No, say that again, Chris. I'm not following what you're saying.
If they pass an AP test, the AP test in Spanish is,
so the AP test would give them college credit.
Yes, but it's more stringent than any one of these tests. So wouldn't it give them their world language credit too? Or do they still have to pass one of these silly little tests?
Well, if they, I think part of it is if they could pass the AP Spanish test, I'm certain they could pass the.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it from a perspective.
Right?
It's silly to make them go back and do this.
Right. So I think, I guess I would agree with what Chris is saying in regards to, is that an option that we could look at as being a capacity for students to be able to do? Because why make them take one test if they can take one that will give them college credit? It's paying twice for the same thing.
Sorry, thank you.
I think there's a bigger question here that I hadn't thought of before. Can a student take an AP test without having taken the course and get high school credit for it?
Yes, the answer is yes to that.
So we do have some level of
credit. College level credit.
College credit. Well, if the college, but not credit under our system. But what you're saying with this program here is they do get high school credit.
Depending on their degrees of proficiency, there's a preset scale that was developed as a recommendation in the model policy. So depending on their proficiency level, if they come in as an initial, I think it's novice, and then it goes intermediate, advanced, it determines the number of credits they can earn, depending on that proficiency.
And so I think the difference really is between earning high school credit and not having to enroll in a language course to earn your high school credit versus AP, I'm earning college credit.
And yeah, I see where you're coming from, but to me it's kind of the difference between having the capacity to get a go-kart driver's license and a real driver's license, and then being asked to go back and do the go-kart license too. If you can pass the harder test, why go for the...
It also would beg it, you'd have to look at that from a much broader picture, though, because you can take an AP test without taking any coursework at all. Any student can sit for any test.
That's right.
Would we give a physics high school credit because a child sat for the AP physics test? So I think you have to, it's one of those things I think we'd have to look at holistically, whereas this is very specific to high school credit and is grade.
Well, let me rephrase this.
Isn't that all back to that seat time?
It is.
It may be back to
Competency
seat time,
test.
but
Yeah, because I think that, initially when we did,
well, is this because if you
Level
don't
5.
pass this under Core 24, you have to take 2 years of language?
I just want to remind the board that we actually adopted policy for graduation requirements 3 years ago.
Yeah.
To have the 2 credit graduation requirement, even within our 22 credit framework prior to the graduating class of 2019. Now, we just updated that to add not the world language credit, but the fine art credit and the additional science credit for the 24 credit framework. So really, we've had the policy in place to allow students to earn the proficiency credit in world language for a number of years. The issue tonight really is that the sites where students have been able to go take the test and pay the fee are just not available to them anymore. So tonight, what we're wanting to do is create opportunities for students to have a place here in our district to take the test and pay the fee just as they have for the past several years. If we don't move forward with this, then our students won't have the opportunity to sit for these assessments.
So this is logistics, Chris, not content.
Well, it's logistics, but I'm really just trying to come back to a logical thing where I just don't get it. If a kid can pass the AP test, they don't get our world language credit, and they have to go back and take 2 years of language, or they have to spend another $130 to take one of these tests that's useless for college. If they can pass the AP test, it should just be an extra column here. It's another way of proving proficiency.
If it would be helpful, what we could do is honestly, I've never heard that request come up. And I'm not aware of any of the students who have previously taken the assessments to be awarded high school credit, being in the situation where they wanted to take the AP test. We could certainly look into that.
Yeah, that would be good.
and is it an AP piece as well, that you have to take the course before you take the test?
No, you're not required to take the AP course in order to take the test.
But according to getting credits, how you earn credits, this isn't unusual actually for the state to allow somebody to do proficiency testing to get credit. This is something we were looking at 20 years ago, is how do you do this in more areas than just a language. But that whole seat time issue is part of getting credit, is you have to be in the class, not just take tests or pass tests, and that's another whole issue.
I would think it's important to go forward with what is here.
Oh,
and making sure that this is accessible and available to our students. Considering if AP can be an option to look at, that's another bigger issue I think we could consider. The other piece I don't know if we've considered around this specifically is because we have a 2 credit requirement for world language, was there any consideration that the district picked up that test fee for those students to take it, as opposed to having the students pay it?
Right. And if you remember in the 24 credit framework with the flexibility there, the 2 world language credit is an area of flexibility for students. They can take something else besides world language if per their high school and beyond plan. So based on they can either enroll in world language courses at the school or have the opportunity to take language during Saturday school, or they're a native speaker and have an avenue for earning world language credit.
It still begs the question as to whether or not we have considered that we should pick up the costs for those tests.
Right now,
and what that actual impact would be, partially because it's a flexibility component for students. It can be a barrier for students in which to do so. I think it opens up doors. Oftentimes we require students with decreased financial need to request decrease prices and things. It'd be nice if we could say, this is something we value. We recognize a world language as being important. We recognize that you might already have it. We are willing to, and that's something, it doesn't have to be decided this evening, I don't think, in any way, but I do think it's something we should consider as a district, that if this is a requirement we have placed and we believe it's valuable, then we should facilitate our students being able to access it.
Matt, was there something that you wanted to say?
I'm saying that's actually something we did research in the neighboring districts in terms of who's paying the fees. And so we did gather some information. Bellevue has the same charge that we're proposing. Issaquah is looking into this. They have not done this before. North Shore is also looking into it as well. So we just don't have comparative data there. Many of our south end districts, starting with Seattle, Kent, and Highline, actually pay for the first test. And that's just borne by the general budget, the general fund.
My reading of the report is that we are already picking up part of the cost of this.
And in checking with, correct, in checking with Bellevue, which I was trying to get an estimate, this is purely an estimate, they said it's costing them on average $20,000 on top of the fee that students are paying for the test.
So this is not a cheap program. My only comment on that, it's nice and it might be a good service, but the money has to come from somewhere. If they were taking the course, it would be part of the course load. So it's not like this is saving us money. So if we had, I'm still very leery of what's going to happen in our next budget. So I would have to have more information before we can start picking up more of these costs, since we don't even know right now what we're going to end up doing.
And it certainly doesn't mean if we pass this that this can't change down the road or come up in a budget somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've done that before with PSAT testing and stuff and other things. So, Mark?
Just because the other districts are charging them, I'd like to see us as a leader rather than a follower for once, and rather than just going with the crowd, perhaps setting an example for the other districts. Now, if it's financially unfeasible, that's one thing.
I'm sorry, Mark, I just want to be sure that I'm representing this correctly. Most of the districts are paying for it. So Edmonds, Seattle, Kent, and Highline are paying for the first test.
No, but I'm talking about the entire.
They are. They're not charging the students for the first test.
Okay.
Sorry if I wasn't clear about that.
You said first test. Do some students take more than one?
Yes. So if they don't pass it, then they try it again.
And so you have a fee schedule in place for that to take place?
I would like to recommend we at least look at what the budget implication would be and what the cost associated with that would be, so the decision can be made around that. I do believe it's important to support our students, and that is a possibility. Maybe this is because I've just paid multiple test fees for my son this year, totaling probably about $1,000 total, that maybe looking at these things, these are costs that add up to our students, and we need to be paying attention to it.
We may be spending way too much time on a very small budget item, but I'm sympathetic to this. At the very least, I'd like to make sure that free and reduced kids will subsidize it.
That is the plan. I also want to call to your attention the range that you see those tests are. Some of them are quite expensive. So we don't have a baseline to know what this is going to cost us. Obviously, if we did it just ourselves and didn't charge for the first test.
But I would assume the other districts do have an idea as to what that total cost is that they're doing, and we have percentages of students that we could probably look at a similarity, at least sort of trend it and predict as best we could. I think we're doing it as a service to our students if we don't take that possibility.
One of the things that we are doing as part of this field test that we're trying to figure out is more than just the actual testing day. We've opened up on our district website an opportunity for families that want to start testing next year to register now, so they can do a pre-registration, and it's helping us get data of how many students are we talking about that are going to come out, and we'll have that additional data. It's opened, it started, I believe, this week, so it's going to be, in a couple of weeks, we'll have some data that we can see what does that look like.
Well, what I'd like to do is entertain, I think we have two things here. One is to put the fees in place so we have them, and two is then a request to look at, is this something that we have to charge? It doesn't, again, if the decision is later made pay for one test or another, you then have fees in place for someone else, for taking subsequent tests. And are we opening it to outside of our district, to other districts? Would that be an option down the road to think about? Now, I'm not saying we have to do that here, but since we were benefiting from someone else having them in the past, is that something that we could be doing also? And I would assume we would not cover their costs.
I think part of this is trying to find out.
So we do need the fee schedule, I believe.
I think part of it is, I'm sorry, Tracy, I think you wanted to answer it. So
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm saying part of this is trying to find out scale. So we're not answering yes or no. We're open. It's on the table. And I agree that we've been privileged to go to others, but we also want to get a sense of how many are we talking about.
Sure.
Otherwise, we'll put ourselves in the same place these districts have, which is they have to turn away people because they're not able to handle their own capacity.
Right. Understood.
Yeah.
And I think those are just future thinking of this with having this in place as a base to start with. So I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Again.
I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions?
Do we need to have a different motion in order to continue a discussion and looking at whether or not it is funded by the district? How will we continue that discussion point is my question.
I think that we, as a board, request that the superintendent look into that as this progresses and come back to us with, once they get more data, how many kids it's going to be, what the cost is going to be, and once they see what the new budget for the next year is going to be, is this something that is affordable? I mean, again, I'm with Chris. When you look at $20,000 in our big budget, that seems like a small item. But I think that as the budget's being formulated, we could ask or request.
There's $20,000 is what we're already absorbing estimate.
Right.
What we want to know is the additional, and then we need to know, we don't have excess money in the budget. If we do this, it means we don't do something else, which I'm open to. I just think we need to take a look at it.
So I want to make sure I'm understanding before the board votes. So I understand there's a motion to accept, to approve the fees. Should the board approve the fees, then we would be implementing these fees for the June 15 testing. That would give us a baseline set of information in terms of how many students will be testing this year, how many students are signed up to test next year, and what the actual cost is. We're estimating $20,000 out of general fund based on information that we've received from other districts, but we won't really know what the actual cost is outside of the fees themselves until we do the field test, essentially, to see what it would take to scale. So if the board approves these fees, these are the fees that we would use for this June testing session.
I have a concern that by instituting the fees up front and not knowing how many kids couldn't afford the fees and how that would have had an impact on the total enrollment for the testing, because they see it as a barrier, because they or their parents really don't care to discuss their family finances with strangers. Some folks are that way. I would suggest that may have a definite impact on the number of people who signed up for the test, because it would be a barrier to them, pro forma barrier.
Is this sorry, the June testing this is impending, and we've not done it before. We would need to adopt this for June testing, and we don't even know how many students are signed up for it.
We do know how many students are signed up for June testing. These are the students that were turned away. They tried to register at other sites where they would have paid the fee, right?
And what are the numbers, Matt?
Registered right now, about 18.
So
it's going to cost us $20,000 to test 18 students plus their fees?
No, that's for the future.
Yeah.
If the fully implemented.
What we did is we asked Bellevue, who's been doing this for several years, what are you charging, and what is it costing you from your general fund on average? And they said it's costing us about $20,000 to do this on average, in addition to the fees. So we're trying to be very upfront in saying this cost isn't bearing all the expense. we can see that it's going to be some expense to the district in the future. The students that we're testing right now were specifically students who could not test in other districts or in other locations. And so those are the ones we reached out to and said, we will test you, because they were counting on it, and then they were turned away.
Matt, could you, just a second, follow up on Bellevue? Do we know how many students, A, Bellevue does, since they've been doing it for a while? I think that's something to find out. And two, they have a large free and reduced population. So I guess I'd like to know how those students, because that would be a natural group sometimes, if the ELL kids are in that setting that might benefit from taking this and getting the world language credits. So that's kind of where information I think would be helpful for me.
I also think this is a last-minute effort in order to accommodate students who haven't been able to be accommodated. Other students have already paid these fees. For us to, at this point, subsidize it is unequitable as far as I'm concerned. But that doesn't mean we can't look at this in the future for how we do it. But it sounds to me like right now this is simply a stopgap measure to accommodate students who haven't been able to take the test otherwise. And those other students who have done it have paid their fees.
So if we were to, if we approve this tonight, this would take care of the initial situation of the kids in June and allow you to begin asking for registration for the future.
Yeah, and I think, actually, to be honest, I believe that per policy, we can't charge these kids a fee and not have a policy in place to do it.
Right.
So we would be initiating a new policy, a new fee, and we're required to bring you fees to the board. So that was why we wanted to get this in place now in order to proceed. We can certainly run the testing and not charge fees. That was not our intent, and going forward, we wanted to have this in place, both for this and then next year.
Well, my thinking is if we approve this to take care of what we're doing now, to get it started, and do some more homework for future, and then it gives time to find out more about Bellevue.
I have those numbers actually.
Oh, okay.
On average, here's what Bellevue at least reports. This past year, they offered it 3 times during the year and tested about 100 students for the whole year. A place like Edmonds did about 180 for the year. A school district the size of Seattle is doing this over 300 students, but they are also including it as part of their dual immersion classes. They're having those students test. Kent has between 250 and 300 students, and Highline has over 200 students that they tested. Now, those are districts with predominantly larger numbers of second language learners, and so they're also, you're seeing that rise going on as well.
And their fees are, what we're seeing here, are similar.
The only one charging a fee is Bellevue.
Okay, and Kent
But
does
their
not?
fees are, I'm sorry, for the first test, but their fees, as you saw in the chart, are similar, yes.
Okay, and how about Kent and those schools, they're not on here, do they not charge?
Kent pays for the first test, and Highline pays for the first test.
Okay.
I'd also like more information on the actual cost, because if the one you quoted, the 20,000 from Bellevue, and I believe you just said that was 100 students at 2,000 an exam, plus the fees, I'm a little confused.
So Bellevue students are paying the fee to cover the cost of the test, and their fees are on the chart here, but
you're saying it's the fees
costing
plus
more
the
than
20,000?
It's costing, the fees themselves don't cover the total cost of providing the test, and it costs Bellevue's.
It's about $5. Right now, it's about $5 that they're getting in profit on the actual stamp test.
Okay,
So
I'm just saying
my
the
point
numbers
is that
are not
the
adding up, so
proctoring,
we need more information.
Okay.
Because 100 students, $20,000, that's 2,000 a piece, that's
200.
Okay, I can't do math tonight.
It's 200 plus the cost, so it's like $330 per student for the
Okay,
test.
that's probably what it is.
Just for future, just one of the
I shouldn't
pieces
do
on
that.
this recommendation that was written, it doesn't imply here anywhere that any of the districts weren't charging for the first test. And that was that was new information that you just provided, and 3 of these districts listed here don't charge for the first test, and I think that was important information that would have been helpful in understanding this.
Yeah, I agree. And when is this test in June scheduled?
This week, Thursday.
Okay.
All right, board. I'm assuming kids need to get this test done so they know if they have to take the class in order to graduate.
That's a large part of the reason for many of these students.
Yeah, and they because they were out of district, they were going to pay
They had already,
as an out of
they had
district.
already, in some cases, already paid and had their money refunded from the state of Washington, OSPI.
Okay.
And in fact, I want to say all of them had already paid along with their registration and were refunded.
18 kids at $200 is $3,600, right?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Basically, I don't
know where
exactly.
I'm sorry,
Again,
I'm not sure I'm getting where what the math is.
On a temporary basis, this actually would be a way that we can thread the needle. We could actually just, for the moment, I think we would like to revisit this, but we do need a policy in place. And just if we can amend the policy to be the first test is free for the moment, and then gives us the time, that's in line with neighbors. It gives these kids right now an answer, but it allows us to revisit the issue with more leisure and more information.
Did you just propose it for this for June?
No, that we just amend
Or
the,
next year we will consider.
that we
paying for it?
amended as proposed, because as proposed it's for this June. That's really the time-limited problem. Some of these kids might need this to graduate, and we got to get a policy in place.
Okay, but these kids are a remnant of kids who have already paid. So basically, from what you're saying, we would be paying for
God, it's so
a
complicated.
small number of
No, I think
students.
Chris said that these kids would pay.
If it's, unless it's their first, unless they're
No.
taking it before. But I just began with the policy to be in line with the others. But have they been paying to be tested at UW?
There's a whole
Yes.
bunch of
Yes.
kids that
Oh,
have
okay,
already
so,
paid.
yeah, sorry, let's just not change
It
expectations.
just wouldn't be fair to pay for a few
This-
students when we didn't pay for all of them.
I hear you, Nancy. I agree with you, Nancy. I think I would like to, in the longer term, with more thought, revisit this as a policy
For next year.
for next year.
So what I'm
That I agree with.
So what
Okay.
I'm hearing is that this would be approved for this June's group of 18, and let them do the test, be done, and have a revisit of the policy for future. That's what I'm hearing as our culminating thoughts.
moved.
Am I correct? I don't know, was that an amendment to was that an amendment to this?
No.
We're approving this, but we're not approving this as a long-term policy.
Well,
We're
it's
asking
being
it
a
to be-
short-term policy, it is slightly changed, because it's saying we want to revisit it, and ideally, we would revisit it
And I
by
think that-
September, in
and
my book.
I think the language has to be part of the motion, is that this is, we approve this with the fact that we want it to come back. So I don't know, is that an amendment, or just, can we just,
I think if you
Friendly
approved
amendment.
it for the 14-15 school year, then it stands for the 14-15 school year.
thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
So that, with this, what we're changing is, the recommendation is at the beginning of in June 2015, we're really changing that date there, that we approve the world competency testing fees for the 2014 school year.
Mm-hmm.
14-15. We should move to
I
amend the
move
motion.
to amend the motion to say that we are passing this policy for the 2014-15 school year.
Now, we have a second, motion, a second on the amendment, because I please have an approval of the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, amendment is approved. Now, we have a motion to approve the, I need a motion to approve the amended motion. Darn it.
Moved. Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor of approval of the amended motion, which is for the 2014-15 school year for these fees? All say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Every now and then, those Roberts rules come rolling out. Remembering those motions and how to do them. Okay,
Thanks, Matt.
thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the next item on non-consent agenda, I'm very pleased that Mike Van Orden, our Director of Curriculum, is here along with representatives from the committee to present to the board the recommended textbook adoption for science grades 9 through 12. And before Mike gets started, I just want to say a couple of things. Mike's new to the district this year, new to his position, and is just doing an absolutely outstanding job facilitating numbers of groups, adoption processes, also filling in and serving as our district assessment coordinator during state testing. And so I'm really excited that you get to hear directly from Mike tonight and hear the recommendation from the committee. I know that you'll be pleased with the work that you hear. Welcome, Mike. Yep.
Okay, I think we're set. Well, thanks. First of all, thank you for letting us present a culmination of 3 years of work for this adoption. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. We also want to thank our adoption committee members, many of whom have been working on this adoption for 3 years. Some of them are here tonight to present for the different subject areas. What I'd like to do tonight is give you an overview of the work that we've been doing and the basis for that work. Talk specifically about the process for this adoption, and it's unique in some ways to as compared to other adoptions. Also talk about our committee membership, which is also unique this year. Talk about the process we use to review the different curricula, and then talk about finally our finalist recommendations, and then give you an opportunity to ask questions. So as with all of our adoption work and advisory work in the district, we're thinking about having our students prepared to lead rewarding, responsible lives as contributing members of our community, and we know that science and engineering and math and technology courses and preparation are really needed to get our kids ready to be, not only to get into college, but once they get into college to access careers later in life. So this mission and vision has really guided our work in the science adoption this year. We also used our guiding principles from our student profile, and immediately you look at challenging and meaningful curriculum, but this work really related in a lot of ways to all of our adoption work as we were examining materials. So for example, looking at interconnected learning experiences and personalization was part of our best practice review of materials, as well as student ownership. We had review of equity and cultural responsiveness, not only as part of our adoption review, but also our instructional materials committee looked very closely at materials for that. And then also, we want to have our teachers equipped to deliver the curriculum by having high expectations for instruction and training as part of this adoption process, not only now, but also in the future. So this has been very much part of our work. In addition, we have our strategic goals, and obviously we want our students to be prepared and have academic success. We also, at the direction of Matt Matabianco this year, did a really thorough review of the cost of each of the materials that we were looking at. And in fact, in one case, one of the sets of materials came in almost $100,000 more than the other sets, and so we were able to take that off of a review because of that process that we added to the curriculum adoption and tried to be responsible with our resources as well. So, as I mentioned, we have a unique adoption, and what I want to do is give you an overview for that, because I think some of the questions that you might have will be addressed by understanding where we are in the adoption of new state standards for science, as well as the age of our materials, because we really, we're working with those two factors and trying to make a decision about what we should do for the adoption. So as you can see here, we have an adoption decision that was originally scheduled for 13-14, but then we adjusted that to go to 14-15, so this is the year where we're recommending an adoption. Next year, we have a 3-year science requirement, 2 years of lab, 1 year of general science that can be up to a student's choice, but that adds to the coursework that students need to take, and we want to make sure they have access to multiple courses and are prepared for science courses they want to take. Then in 2016-17, the state has recommended a full adoption of next generation science standards, which are our state science standards. Those standards have been adopted by 13 states in the U.S. And then in 17-18, there's scheduled to be a third-year comprehensive science assessment. And by comprehensive, we mean that that could include all of the different standards in physical science, life science, earth and space, as well as the new science and engineering practices. So there are a number of things on the horizon that made having materials that are aligned to standards important. And we were very careful about looking at materials that would align with those standards. However, what we found in talking with publishers and working closely with publishers is they're still waiting to see how the next-gen science standards proceed. And so they're taking their time, to put it mildly. And so what we were hearing from them is at best we could expect maybe in 2016-17 we would start to see the release of published materials that would be aligned with standards. And that's just some of the publishers. Some of them said they weren't quite sure. So that could potentially extend out into 17-18 or 18-19 before we had a robust set of science materials to review. And so we were weighing that. How long can we wait before we adopt materials? And the real factor there, as you look at the bottom of this chart, is that our materials are getting older each year. So right now they average about 12 years. We have some materials that are 11, some that are 13, and each year obviously they're getting older. So by the time we can reasonably and optimistically expect materials to be aligned with common or next generation science standards, we'd be looking at 15 years, but could also be as much as 16 or 17-year-old materials. And though some of the content in science hasn't changed, quite a bit has, as you can imagine. So we were wrestling with that decision. We were also wrestling with the decision about what courses students will have to take, and that was the reason for the adjustment of the adoption cycle. And so we had a year where we started the normal adoption cycle, and then we proceeded and we were working through this. So we made an adjustment to the typical adoption cycle that you've seen. So it's stretched into 4 years. The first year there was that traditional work. So our committee researched best practice, learned about the new next generation science standards, and actually developed rubrics. And they were moving along, and then started to realize that there weren't materials that were really well aligned to the standards. And so they decided to look for an alternative, and I believe you've heard about this. They looked at open educational resources, which are free and openly licensed resources. Most of the times they're digital, that you can use as a district, and you could review them the same way you'd review any materials. What we found is that for math and English language arts, there were materials that were fairly well developed. However, for science, our committee, as they reviewed the materials, were finding that the quality was really low. In fact, in many cases, it was simply PDFs of old textbooks that were repackaged or designed lessons that were really not up to the high standards that we have in our district. And so that didn't seem to be an option. The next idea was to develop our own resources and have teachers create lessons and assessments and all of the curriculum for all of these 4 courses that we're adopting. We ran into a production issue there. Our committee members worked long hours and put lots of time into it. They were able to create materials for about 20 or 23 of the 70 or so standards that were just single lessons or a couple lessons. So in no way near having a comprehensive curriculum that we could put in front of our teachers and students. And so they were coming up against kind of a wall there. So that brings us to this year. What we decided to do this year, after analyzing the OER work that we had undertaken and realizing that wasn't getting us anywhere, is to at least look at materials and review materials with the rubrics that we've developed. And so we finalized the rubrics this year. And then in addition, as I mentioned, this year we added parents and community members to this committee as well as all of our adoption committees. So we started with 4 parents and community members on our committee. And we started to review materials. What we found is that the materials were much more current, and you'll hear in a few minutes from our committee members, definitely a step above what we currently have. They were, in many cases, aligned with best practice. They still were a little bit low on the standard side. And so that led us to some work going out to our high schools and meeting with each of the high school departments and all of the teachers that would be impacted by this decision, and just saying, what would it look like if we didn't have really tightly aligned next-gen science standard materials? And could you work with these materials if they were better, significantly better than the ones you have? And we heard that, for the most part, teachers said yes. They said, if we could wait a year or two, that would be fine, but much longer than that doesn't make a lot of sense to us. And as we were looking out, we were thinking that 2 years was really going to be pushing it to have quality materials. So we went forward and piloted materials in classrooms. We actually had over 1,400 students that participated in that pilot, and we gathered data from those students as well. And our teachers shared and recorded information during the pilot process, which led us to 2 finalists and a recommendation to IMC. So if approved, what we'd be looking at is adopting or implementing curriculum next year in all 4 subjects. And in addition to that, we'd be providing professional development around the next-gen science standards to help bridge that gap between the materials that don't quite align with the standards and what we expect students to need. In addition, we, as always, monitor the implementation to make sure that we're supporting our teachers. Just briefly, as I mentioned, we had a diverse group of teachers working with us, and many of them, as I mentioned, have been on this committee for 3 years, but we did add parents and community members. We also have a new curriculum specialist who did a lot of the behind-the-scenes work learning about the standards and bringing our committee up to speed on where we are in the standards, as well as a director of school support and a principal from Eastlake, who were both involved in that final decision to make the recommendation to adopt this evening. As always, I mentioned we used the 5 rubrics that we use in all of our adoptions, and for 3 of these, assessment, organization, design, and technology integration, very high scores for each of our adopted recommendations. Best practice as well, scored very high. Next generation science standards, again, is one area where it's not as tight as it might be during a typical adoption. So we, as I mentioned, narrowed our choices down through a review. We got to 2 to 3 options per subject and piloted those, and so you see those here. In some cases, our committee felt that there were 3 choices that were close enough that they wanted to see what they looked like in the classroom. And so for physical science and biology, we piloted materials from 3 publishers, chemistry and physics from 2. And again, this was after narrowing the field down from anywhere from 5 to 6 publishers that had materials that were even close enough for us to consider. We did have a public preview of materials. We received no comments on those, and that was surprising. Thinking as we move forward with our math adoptions in particular, we will be definitely going out and doing parent meetings in our different learning communities. We didn't do that with this one, but we did believe that having parents on the committee added something that we haven't had, and some of the perspectives that they shared with us were really helpful in us making a decision. So at this point, I'd like to have our committee members give a presentation for each of the subject areas and talk about some of the features of the materials that we're recommending are different than the current materials. And also in part of this, you'll hear some of the aspects and elements of the adoption process. So to start, I'd like to introduce Ryan Palmer and Emma Morris, who are going to talk about our physical science materials.
A quick question before we roll on that. Is this the order that it's physical sciences 9th, bio 10? And that's standard across our comprehensive?
In some cases. We also have students that take biology as 9th graders, and we also have some students that skip chemistry and go into physics. So we do have many different pathways. That's going to change, though, with the 3-year graduation requirement. We'll have to think about that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Palmer, and
I'm Emma Morris.
And we're science teachers. We've been in the district for a number of years, and we've been on the adoption committee and been working together. So we're going to talk a little bit about physical science. I kind of wanted to start with just to give you an idea of what we have right now. With the exception of biology, none of our current science materials have any digital online components to them. And the biology book technically has the book online, but it is literally just the text from the book. So one of the biggest things that was super impressive for us as a committee was the online resources and the digital resources, especially with having gone one-to-one and having these devices and being the world where the students live in. That's kind of been a big component that you're gonna kind of see as a theme throughout a lot of what we talk about.
So because physical science is a class that most 9th graders take, it's a class where we have enrollment of students who have really varied skill levels, especially in terms of reading and mathematics. So one of the important things for us when we were evaluating resources was to look at how can we differentiate instruction, and especially how can we support new teachers in providing that differentiation. embedded in the curriculum. So this is a shot of the teacher guide of the textbook, and the guide does a nice job of pulling out some of those opportunities. Here are two examples of how you can start to address the needs of students. And while a teacher who knows their students personally is obviously going to expand on suggestions like this, when we think about having a brand new teacher in a classroom, we think that this could be a really nice entry point for them in terms of looking at how they can provide supports.
One of the other things that we find in our science classes is we have a huge range of abilities when it comes to reading that our students come to us with. And so that's a big area where we need to differentiate for our students, because a lot of the students can understand the science concepts but get hung up on the reading level. And so we don't want that to be something that keeps them from being able to access the science. And so one of the things that this book that we're looking at from McGraw-Hill does is it has a lot of added reading supports to it. So from this particular page from a motion unit, they actually have online the ability to have it read to them, which I know a lot of other curriculum has, but is new and exciting for us in science. So we're really excited about that as a support for students. There's also something that is called a Reading Essentials, which is a supplementary material that is the exact same science content, but at a lower reading level for students, so they can still access all of the same science content, but not get hung up on, more complex sentence structures and things like that. And they have that for the entire book. So that was a huge thing for us. They also have an interactive science notebook that has reading guides that can be used for all students, that has supplemental things to help students as they're learning to read a textbook, which is something in science that's a relatively new skill for them in 9th grade. So it has a whole host of different things with vocabulary, 2-column notes, graphing, all of these different ideas. And one of the things that was impressive about this as well is it is aligned both to the standard textbook and to the Reading Essentials. So they can use that same activity, we can use these same resources for the students regardless of which particular reading level they're at. They all will have access to that same level of support.
Another concern we have for students is those who are developing their English language skills, and something that this publisher provides is a really great set of supports for students whose first language is Spanish. So you can see here, this is a version of the Reading Essentials text in Spanish as opposed to English, but still hitting all of those science concepts. And then all of the available online assessment tools, of which there are many, come in both an English language version and in a Spanish language version, so that we can assess students in the language that's most appropriate for them, if it's Spanish or English. The other tool that's available both online and in the textbook version in hard copy is a glossary that has vocabulary in Spanish and in English. So you can see here, if you look up a term, you can find the English definition, and then if you just click the different language, it'll pull up the same term in Spanish. So if they're in different places in the alphabet, it still finds it for you. In the hard copy textbook, the English and Spanish terms and definitions are side by side. So students wouldn't have to flip back and forth. They could see the term described in both languages.
So the student edition itself, especially with the online access, has a whole host of extra supplementary materials. You can see them down at the bottom. And the chemistry book actually is from the same publisher and has a similar interface. So you can see a little bit more about what that is when the chemistry group presents. But they have access to online simulations and labs. They have access to the Reading Essentials and all of those guides digitally as well. So it's not just up to the teacher. They kind of hold everything. Students have a lot of access to a lot of these resources as well.
So the last thing we're going to talk about is support for those math skills that we practice a lot in 9th grade science. So one thing that's really nice about the way the book presents equations is that they do this color coding. So each variable is given a color, and then you can see the unknown that it relates to. So that's going to help students learn abbreviations for different terms. But they keep that color coding when they do example problems in the text. So this is really nice because it allows students to see, as you plug in numerical values along with their units, which variable that maps back to, and then what's the term you would use to describe that. Another thing we really like about this is it supports students in building the skill of rearranging an equation before they plug in numerical values. That's something we really want them to have the conceptual familiarity with, especially as they move on into higher level science courses.
So Tim McFall, our biology teacher from ICS, wasn't able to make it tonight, so I volunteered to speak for him, and Ryan can chime in because he also helped on that. Similar to physical science, we are recommending a different publisher for biology just because it stood out. But again, as our presenters were sharing for physical science, these digital materials are something that aren't in place. So many of those features they were sharing with you are part of a digital resource that comes with the package that we're recommending. And we noticed in particular for the biology, the digital resources were exemplary, and we're going to share a few examples of those. The biology materials, in addition, were probably the best aligned to the next generation science standards of all the materials we looked at. They had the 3 different areas of the standards, which make them unique. Plus the textbook in our piloting with students, we got good student feedback on the appeal of the textbook and the engagement with the textbook, that the sequence was logical, and students were saying the language made sense to them. So we wanted to just briefly touch on some of the digital resources, and also to talk a little bit about this idea that having materials that are 15 years old does put us at a disadvantage in some cases. So one of the things you'll see up here is a video. They have multiple videos of scientists out in the field collecting data, and then they give that data to students to make sense of. So in this case, the glove you see with the small hand is they're doing some genetic sequencing of a virus in a barrier from the barrier reef. That didn't exist 15 years ago. So that's current science that students can actually see and hear about that's actually related to what they're going to see when they go to college, and what some of our recipients tonight of our awards were going into these fields. There are also all sorts of different features for teachers. So there's interactive readers similar to the ones we saw with physical science. There's data analysis tools, so students can actually put data in and analyze it and make different sense of it. Computer simulations where they can adjust variables. As we mentioned for the physical science, there are assessment tools that are digital. We don't have that right now, so our teachers are making up their own assessments. Now we have full test banks that we can level and work with our system of proficiency, as well as presentation tools for teachers and multimedia labs and activities. And so these are just a few examples of some of the things that are available digitally. The other benefit to digital resources is those can be updated. So the text we have will have for the next 10 years or so, but the digital resources, as they're updated and new materials are added, we have access to those. And so those will still stay tight to the text, but will also include additional multimedia labs, additional activities for kids to look at, additional videos that will be better aligned to next-gen science standards. Did I leave anything out, Ryan?
You did a really good job. Okay. I think the one thing that I would add is so I reviewed the biology textbook as a part of the IMC and also have taught biology. And one of the things about it is it's very readable, which is important because, again, biology is a required course, so all students take biology. And one of the biggest difficulties that students struggle with in biology is vocabulary, because there's a lot of words that are not familiar words that is in biology, more so than a lot of the other sciences that they've experienced. And the book did a really great job of making the vocabulary accessible for students, using examples and common language, as well as the scientific definitions, so that they can be making those connections for the vocabulary.
And the last thing our biology team wanted to point out was, as I mentioned, we had 1,400 students, or more than 1,400 students, that were involved in the piloting. And so we collected comments from students as well as data from students. And so we had a number of comments, in particular for biology, that really spoke to students engaging with the text. And so biology was one area, and chemistry to some extent as well. The student comments kind of tip the balance from one publisher to the other, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So here are a few examples for our biology. So next we have a group that are going to come up and speak about chemistry. This will be Krista, JD, and Shelby.
Well, while they're coming up, can I ask a quick question? You keep mentioning the online tools. Are we getting to the point where the kids will not be breaking their backs carrying all the textbooks back and forth?
So that,
or they still need the textbook
The textbook actually is in digital format, so in some cases it's a simple PDF, in other cases it's interactive. So they could potentially, and our teachers could probably talk about this too, could leave a book at home and still have access at school, or have a book at school and have access at home. So and you may want to chime in on that if you.
That's what we do now, is we send a book home with all of our kids, and then we have access to them at school, or we have hard copies of them at school since we don't have current online versions of our text. So we're going to talk about the chemistry book, and the big thing for us, or the surprising thing for us, was we started the pilot process and said, like, that's the book we think we're going to get, and it was not this book, it was a different book. And so then we JD and I both piloted in our classrooms, and our kids were like, no, this other book is really good. They loved how readable it was. They loved how they could access everything online, and it was really easy for them to find everything. So we got a lot of, like Mike mentioned, a lot of really great feedback from our kids about this book and how much they enjoyed using it.
So again, one of the major things that we saw in this, as in all of our new resources, is that we have digital resources, which is incredibly exciting for us because we don't have any of that. And the feedback from other teachers that I got is that what they would really like is to have these digital resources. That's a huge missing piece in science, which is, it's science. It has to have digital stuff. Some of the digital resources include its online text, which also has the read out loud option. It has a lot of animations and virtual labs. I got to play around with some of them. It had orbital diagrams that really helped kids figure out how orbital notation worked with the electron configurations. It overall just helped them understand so much more with the visuals. It has an assessment for every single section that can be assigned by the teacher, or they can just use it as a self-check. It's called a self-check, and it's really great to have that many small assessments that they can use to help check themselves. And it also had a lot of videos. I would say, as I was looking through this had the highest quality of any of the digital resources that we looked at, of any of the textbooks that were available. And of course, we don't have digital resources, so we were just excited in general.
Another thing we looked at whenever we were looking at the textbooks was the real-world connections, and we really wanted to have like a big theme or a big idea for the beginning of each chapter that we could connect and engage students right off the bat with. And so the real-world connections in this book were all over the place. Every single section of the book started with a chem for you, and so kind of like a big question to get people thinking about the topic and what they're going to learn. And then embedded throughout the each of the chapters were chemistry and health, real-world chemistry, chemistry and careers, fun facts. I mean, I have a list of 8 things that are just embedded throughout the whole entire textbook in each chapter. So there's lots of things to kind of get students engaged. Another thing with the real-world connections is there's a lot of writing prompts that you could assign kids to get them to take that idea that they're learning about and actually go further with it. So that'd be good for differentiation. So this was a huge selling point when we were looking at this textbook.
Like Emma and Ryan mentioned with the physical science book, this one also goes through and breaks down problems really easily for the kids to make that math more accessible. We see a lot of students that struggle with chemistry because of the vocab and the math, and it's not that they can't do it, it's just they're not used to doing it. So each of the problems is broken down really well, and then they get a math handbook that they're accessible online, or that's accessible online, that they can go in and actually it'll walk them through how to do ratios or how to do those proportions that they have to do. And then tutorial videos so they can go and watch specific videos on topics if they're struggling to do that math or understand it just from reading it. But it does do the same thing as Emma was talking about, where they've got the problem broken down. They have to identify all their unknowns, so they're following that same pattern that we would expect as teachers instead of just throwing numbers into their calculator and hoping for the best. And so along the way, there's all the example problems come with specific practice. And then if you look at the bottom left of the screen, at the very end of each chapter, there's a SAT prep section that's a standardized test questions. And then in that section, it says problems, what problem it is, and then what section it is in the book, so they can easily go back and find it on their own, so they can make reference so that they can get better at the material.
So one of the things that Krista mentioned at the beginning was that the students really helped sway us when we went through our piloting process, but it wasn't just that. One of the other things that really started to show itself very clearly is the kind of resources that this textbook had for the teachers that makes it easier to walk in and be a teacher of chemistry in this district. As of right now, our options are MIA. Like, we just don't have them around. The people, you know, they're lost. They're somewhere. The other books that we piloted, their options were really poor. They actually did not help. In the pilot process, when I was working with some of them, it was very difficult to try to arrange a lesson from what they gave me. But what this did is it had solutions prepared for, you know, all of their problems. It had a lot of differentiated instruction, which is very common among the textbooks. But it also had so many resources for just how to arrange a lesson. It didn't just limit you to one idea either. It gave you a whole host of resources to really make a good quality lesson as a teacher, which is a huge, huge impact that can really help all of our students.
I just want to make a quick note. If you look at the top right corner of the differentiated instruction, embedded throughout the teacher textbook, there's these little AL, OL, BL, EL, and cooperative learning. So there's tons of activities out there that hit like either grade level or below grade level or above grade level. So that was really cool to have all those options. For the local or logical organization for students, we thought this was a really easy textbook for them to navigate, even online. Sometimes the online versions can be a little overwhelming, such as the other textbook that we piloted, but this one, it's very clearly laid out. You can access everything from the main page on, if you see on the like green picture at the bottom, there's a program resources and student resources. So they can actually pick what section they want to go to. All the resources are laid out right there, or they could just open the ebook and read it page by page, and it's identical to the textbook. And then also we thought it was really nice how there's a homework little block and a message block, so teachers can like leave messages or put homework assignments on that main page so that kids know what they're supposed to have. And then a huge selling point for this textbook is it actually links to Haiku. So it just, all you have to do is input a button on your Haiku page and you click that button and it'll pull you straight to this website. So we thought that was really nice for our kids so they don't have to, you know, save the page or try and figure out what the website is over and over and over again. So it was just clearly lined out for them.
Thank you.
And so finally, we have Jeff Gehring, who's going to talk about our physics.
Hi there, I'm Jeff Gehring from Redmond High School. Actually not a student, teacher at Redmond High School. I get that pretty regularly. I'm going to keep physics short and sweet, which is the opposite of my classroom persona, actually. We really had two main goals going into the physics book. One was a tool that would be readable for students, something that they could read as mainly a secondary resource, particularly for students that were absent, something that they could really dig into at home and get something from the reading of the book itself, from the text of the book itself. Our current book is written in too technical of a manner. Students find it hard to approach. They don't know how to read through and derive all the equations the book derives for them. It's not an effective tool. So that was our primary goal, getting something they could really read on their own. Most of our physics classes across the district are viewed as a college prep level course, so we're gearing students towards college level sciences in general. So we were looking for that level of rigor, and in particular the style of problems and the style of problem solving suggested by the book. We wanted that to match what they're going to see moving on to future science courses. Here's an example of the way the book solves problems, which is absolutely fantastic. It fits with the way we require in physics in that they must solve a problem fully algebraically before ever plugging in variables. It's a skill that we spend months on every year trying to get our students really proficient with the symbolic problem solving of problems. It's a fantastic book in that the way it solves problems is just like the way we solve them in our own classroom. Another strong point for students using the book at home. There's a lot of interesting tidbits and side pieces in the book. Every chapter has a couple of physics and you pieces, careers, technology, cutting edge science, a lot of fun applications that during the pilot process, students actually said that was one of their favorite pieces, these extra extensions. There's quite a few online resources. This is an example of an online lab activity. There's a simulator. Students are able to change variables, look at resulting calculations. There's a series of questions that go along with it, so this is a really easy piece to just pull and plop in front of them on their computers. A great addition to any piece we're covering in class. There's also quite a few videos. These videos break down and have pausing points where questions are asked and students get to pick an answer, and then it explains whether the answer was correct or not. I love this guy. He does a great job in his video presentations. You can tell the excitement in his eyes. For the most part, to be honest, the online resources of this textbook were not as strong as the other textbook that we piloted, nor what the other fields have selected. However, the rigor of the problems in this book absolutely blows the other book out of the water and calculates the force required to do so at the same time. It's much more to the level of a course that we expect. The other book we piloted with the stronger resources was so far behind in problem quality and rigor that there was a clear-cut winner. We picked this one over the other. Our students picked this over the other. We're really happy with this Pearson choice. Is that?
Okay. First, before you do this, I want to thank everybody for your presentations. And you must have heard me ask Tracy, I said, is he really a teacher? I can tell that I'm getting older out here.
Could I just say one more thing
Yes.
before we start with questions? I also just want to make sure I have the chance to recognize and thank all the teachers that have served on the committee. It's a huge commitment to do this kind of work in addition to teaching students in your own classrooms every day, and we so value the professionalism of all of you and your willingness to take on this really difficult work and to be away from your classroom and to provide the service for the betterment of all students across the district. So thank you.
Yes, and I'll echo that thank you. We know how it takes a lot of time to do this and working with a lot of people and very thorough, and not just, a month or two. You've been doing this for a while, so again, thank you. So board members, any questions? Well, who are we going to start with? Mark?
Reading essentials. Oh, thank you. Heard a lot about reading essentials and support for math. But one of the components that I've seen lacking for the last couple of years that I've been helping someone struggle through is there's no support really for science writing. You'll have a good science, or you'll have a good writing teacher, you'll have a good science teacher, but never the twain shall meet, so to speak. And is there components to the new curriculum in any of the or any or all of the different studies that really helps them write what they're doing?
So there are writing components to many of the assessments as well as the activities and lab tasks that you're seeing. Where there's some, I'm seeing some nodding because these are people that spent hours and hours reviewing these materials, and I'm hearing that there were definitely some writing. I don't think it was called out though quite as explicitly as the reading and the problem solving.
Well, the idea I'm thinking of the supports for those that really aren't getting the writing. It's such a totally different type of writing.
Right.
Okay, someone else? Nancy?
These are all lab-based classes, right?
Correct.
And I couldn't quite get the connection. Are the labs in the text, or is that a separate piece?
So it's interesting. So the digital resources include kind of some of those traditional lab manuals and student manuals that you've seen in the past. So there are actually lab manuals for each of these that come digitally. And so they're PDFs that teachers can print out. So they're the traditional printed out labs that teachers can adjust. There are also, though, digital labs where, as we were mentioning, students can actually conduct an experiment through a model and change variables and make adjustments.
So in chemistry, the cover for the book struck me, since that is the primary cause of lab-based accidents. And I do know that in our district, we have been doing it safely for a very long time with small quantities of methyl alcohol. But we are still doing it, right? The kids still get to play, just with tiny quantities, not whole beakerfuls.
Yes.
So it is fully, all three all 4 areas are fully lab supported. Okay.
Absolutely.
And I love having the video supplements because there are things that are difficult to do in a lab, particularly if you want to do your sodium metals at the higher levels. I hope you have a really good video. I've seen some. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Siri or Chris?
I just want to add on to that question. So these are all of these courses intended to be both physical and virtual lab, or are some of these actually dry courses? They're all lab-based science.
Yes.
Good answer. Thank you.
Well, AP. Does this cover AP, or are those additional texts?
So that's we have a different adoption cycle for advanced placement, but
That's
the
what I
idea
thought.
was that these
Okay.
would feed into advanced placement courses and prepare kids for them.
Okay. Siri?
I would just like to say thanks for the focus on the differentiated instruction and working with the different reading abilities and ensuring that science is accessible to all our students, regardless of language skill, reading skill, and being able to build that component. I think that's a big piece. And I have no idea what the assessments also would have to have that same component, would be my only concern. But it was great to see all the text-to-speech, all those components that will open that. So ideally, as we support our students now and being able to do that, they can succeed further. So I appreciate that focus on it.
And I appreciate the listening to the students as well, and to really taking what they had to say in account as you were evaluating materials. Just kind of got scary, though, and I was looking how long ago it's been since my sons were in school, and the textbooks that you're currently using are not too much. They must have been adopted just after they graduated, so it's probably time. Yes. Oh, you're not done. I thought you were done. Oh, you wanted to be last. I should know better. This is Chris.
Sorry, I'm a lab scientist professionally, so I live, breathe this stuff, and I'm much happier with what's being presented than
Thank you, Nancy.
perhaps in some past adoptions. So my first question is actually to the teachers. You did a great job of diving into differentiation and support for kids who need to backfill pieces. There was one page where it had something about above grade level support. Is that high enough quality? I am worried about the nerds and making sure that they've got the support so that they're not just doing the lab for the team or whatever. There is challenge in there for kids who exceed.
Yeah, Emma, do you want to come up and talk about that?
You guys can come up.
Yeah.
You might be busy, and it'll save us time because I've been watching him write.
The McGraw-Hill text, so the chemistry and physical science both have that above-level learner embedded into the teacher document. But one thing that I'll say is a really big strength of those digital labs and those online labs is it's really easy to make that into an extension for a student because they can change the variables and test a more expansive set of things, or sometimes change more variables at a time than you would maybe encourage all of your students to test. But because that is not always the wet lab aspect of it, it's a little bit safer to let students do that kind of like at the same time as something else that's going on. And so a lot of the digital resources really give us that pathway for letting kids have an additional challenge or take an idea a little bit further, which is different from what you'd find in traditional textbook, like limited paper copies of something.
Right. Okay, cool. And so this would be within the non-AP track. It's providing the opportunity for kids to stretch themselves. How does this dovetail with AP? Is this a separate set of texts to kids, or?
I'll give you a quick answer, and then I think some of our other teachers who may have taught AP can also chime in. Our kids take non-AP courses before AP in many cases. So they might take biology as a freshman and then jump into chemistry or physics and then into an AP course. So these courses really are designed, in many cases, and at many of our high schools, as the prerequisite course to get into an AP course. Not all, and that it varies from school to school, but they might take chemistry and then AP Chem. So the courses and the concepts really should and do prepare kids for that advanced placement coursework. But I'll defer to some of our other teachers. Jeff, do you want to?
Yeah, I teach AP as well, and to my knowledge, it's the same across all the high schools, but at Redmond, biology is a prerequisite for AP biology, chemistry for AP chemistry. We teach different AP physics courses, and I don't think we have a consistent path. In fact, none of us require physics as a prereq to AP physics. But in general, the kids are going to be seeing these books and then seeing the AP books, which were adopted last year in a short cycle, so those are new as well.
Great. You're exactly who I wanted to have in the hot seat, too. So because AP is a separate set of texts, I assume that this is not a calculus-based physics.
The physics we are adopting is algebra-based. That's correct.
Yeah, okay. And so in that context, it's still our senior level course. So you've got physical science, but you get physics in the senior level.
Generally, 90% of the students in physics.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Do they have the option of taking it earlier? Because that's what
They do.
I mean, back in the dark ages,
Right.
I did physics in 9th grade so that I was on accelerated science.
So each
program.
of our high schools have a different 9th grade program. At Redmond, we have an honors physics chemistry, which is half a semester of each course, which meets the same prereq requirement as a full year physics and a full year chemistry. I believe East Lake just started the same one. I'm not sure about Lake Washington. So,
okay,
mixed bag.
And so structurally, if a kid really wants to push themselves, how many of the subjects could they potentially take an AP exam in?
Oh, goodness gracious. I think we have a lot of kids at Redmond who take 3 is pretty common. We have a handful taking 4 plus computer science on top of that.
Okay.
So we have kids with as many as
If you can pull that off, I'm happy. Good
5 to
answer.
6 in the STEM fields.
Okay. Well, once again, huge compliments to you guys. Aside from the fact that you made me feel really old and gray-haired up here, it's great to see a staff who are so enthusiastic about their subject. I think I would be pleased to be in any of your courses, but these days, like I said, you just managed to make me feel really old. The tie, it just doesn't make you look old enough. I'm sorry. It was a good try, though.
Don't feel bad.
The first 4 months into working at Redmond, who gave you those keys?
It could be worse. At least you're tall. My daughter's 5'1", and she teaches college, and she looks at your age. She had to list all her degrees before the kids would listen to her.
And actually, this is the last question. This is one of the I was involved in writing the science standards for our state, which got immediately dumped, and now we've got these next generation science standards. But I like to think that we had an influence on them. One of the questions and one of the challenges that we always face in trying to help design on a curricular level lab work is giving kids a meaningful question where you don't actually know the answer. How well are they doing that in the labs that are provided in these curricula? I mean, is it to what extent is it cooking versus where you know the answer versus, hey, let's figure this out? Have any of them really gotten there? I know it's a bit of a pipe dream, but
It really kind of varied. Like there were a lot of labs, at least in the chem textbook, that were kind of cookbooky, but then as you got further in any chapter, there were always ways that you could take those labs and extend on them, or you could take a non-cookbook lab and say, okay, here's that problem that you have to solve now. So they had both available, but they did include some of the more...
Well, a little Julia Childs is fine, but all Julia Childs gets boring. So, if you even get that reference.
I want to speak for her, though. Like, I know in the chem department at East Lake, they actually do a lot of open-ended labs that are very, like, kids want to pull their hair out because they're not given the cookbook style. But it's really cool to see, like, them use all those lab skills that they got, previous and really apply it to, like, one big problem. So they are doing that, even if they're not in the textbook. They might get ideas from the textbook and kind of carry it on with that. So.
Okay.
In the physical science textbook, in one of the pre-pages for the teachers in the teacher edition of the book, it actually lays that out specifically, and it says, here are different types of labs. Here's the level of teacher involvement and a level of student involvement. It gives the continuum, an inquiry continuum, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
And then it labels the labs in the book based on that continuum. So it has those cookbook labs, but it calls them out as such, as well as those inquiry labs that are open-ended, student-generated questions, all those components.
Do they get many labs where they're actually doing their hypothesis and then coming up where they get to try and structure how they're going to do that? And do they keep lab books and all that fun stuff? Cool.
And thank you for bearing with me. I had exactly one more question. We've been working on these signature programs, and how do these materials dovetail with those? Would that be separate materials that people are building around?
So depending on the course, I believe STEM has honors level courses, and so they are looking at using some of the texts for their honors level courses, and others they have another text that they're already using. It might be the AP text. So we went school to school and said, tell us, do you want us to include you with these materials, or would you prefer to continue using the materials that you have? And so that's how we adjusted there.
And ironically, even though I do love the STEM school, I'm more interested in providing that pathway through all of our high schools. So I'm very interested in how well that's working at the comprehensive.
I could also mention, though, that, for example, the honors chemistry physics courses are choosing to use the current materials for their courses, so that they're freshmen, they're taking chemistry one semester, physics are using the chemistry and physics books that we're recommending for adoption.
Cool.
Are we still offering science electives? Like I remember when Amy was at Juanita, there was a marine biology class. I don't know about other schools. What?
We still have that.
So there's still science, besides the core, there's still
yeah, I do need to say, though, with the 3-year science requirement, that's an option. That could be the 3rd-year course that they take. What we're waiting to see is what that science assessment is going to look like and what it's going to have in it and what we need to do to prepare our kids to pass it. And we know for many of our kids that will be just fine, but we want to make sure they have access to the content. So the standards we were talking about at the beginning also include earth science standards as well as technology and engineering standards. And so one of the things we're looking at is how do we build that into our curriculum as well. So there's that, we were wondering about what those pathways are going to look like, and our committee could fill your ears with comments about pathways, but we wanted to make sure we have materials that we could adjust and move around depending on what kids need to take in the future.
Well, and yeah, we have so many requirements, but for the kids who aren't going in the sciences or aren't on the AP path, having some of those, after they get their core, having other science classes available, I think helps prepare them to be better citizens.
One more, Chris, and then you're done. No, I'm teasing. I know.
I also want to get home, but the last question, and this is around the math integration. Since these are not necessarily AP courses, I do love the algebra, but how well is statistics integrated in there? To what level do kids get to analysis of data, collection, uncertainty, error, measurement error? Do they get to expose to anything, and God help us, do they actually get a chi-squared, or does that ever... P-values, maybe?
No.
All right. Work on that.
That was
Thank
a
you.
very good answer there. I mean, not good answer, but an answer. Very.
But we are
succinct.
offering statistics now, aren't we?
Yes.
I thought it was an option.
Yes.
But not in these.
And I would say there are some, calculating error and uncertainty and things like that within chemistry as well.
Any other questions from board members? I think then I would entertain a motion to adopt the district textbook adoption here for high school science. I have a motion in a bunch of seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
And now it goes to implementation.
Yes. Again, thank you to Mike, and thank you to all the teachers and everyone who served on the committee for all of your hard work and for a great outcome tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, would you please share our thanks with the rest of the committee members? Okay.
Just like students, you're welcome to go home and get some sleep for your classes.
Yeah, we love company, but again, you don't have to stay. No. You're on this side of the wall. Superintendent's report?
I'd really recommend that at some point we look at the idea of, for either 8th or 9th grade, having a science writing class so that before they get into the heavier sciences, they've got a really good handle on how to write the material. Because I think there's a link missing for a lot of the kids, and then they suffer as they get into those classes.
Isn't technical writing supposed to be part of the new core writing?
Yeah, maybe what I can do is follow up in a future superintendent's report and just provide at least a status of how writing is addressed in middle school science.
Well, it's just that, you know,
Yeah.
I think when we look at the writing classes, it's a writing class that's geared towards the literature, it's geared towards your classic writing, as opposed to the kids that are going to be heavily involved, or for that matter, just meeting the requirements to graduate of these science classes, and it's really a different animal.
Yeah, okay, I can follow up on that and at least share where we are, because there are some changes, just like with the reading informational text.
There's a
in
lot
Common
more
Core, there's change
reading
in the
of text.
writing, too, with Common Core.
Okay. Tracy's got
Soup's report. Okay, great. It's interesting because my superintendent's report, part of it provides somewhat of an update on some of our signature programs. So, as we all know, graduation season is upon us, and we're really looking forward to graduating approximately 1,600 seniors. Yeah, in just the weeks ahead. And as was noted earlier, this is the first year for graduating seniors at the Tesla STEM High School, and we're really proud of the science, technology, engineering, and math programs there, as well as the programs that we have in all of our high schools. And as you know, our vision from the beginning of the inception of the Tesla STEM School was to have not just a STEM school, but strengthen STEM opportunities in all of our high schools. So I have just a couple of examples and a little update to share tonight. First, I want to extend congratulations to the Lake Washington High School team, as they are having their first capstone presentations from students in their engineering design STEM signature program this evening. And the event showcases the original inventions that students designed, prototyped, and tested this year. Students will present their inventions in the theater to community and a panel of 9 judges representing a number of area engineering firms. And they invited me to attend tonight. I unfortunately couldn't attend because I got to be here with all of you, which is a good thing. But Christina assured me that they would get some pictures, and so we can really recognize students for their efforts and learn a little bit more about the presentations that students made. I also want to congratulate the Tesla STEM High School students and Juanita High School students who attended the Northwest Association for Biomedical Research Student Bio Expo on May 27th. From Juanita High School, 22 students in STEM 1 and 2, it's their STEM Global Health signature program, did a fabulous job representing Juanita High School. Each student wrote a 5 to 10 page research paper on their topic, interacted with an external mentor, and presented their work to judges from the Seattle scientific community. A number of Juanita students earned awards for their bioethics work in the categories of website, journalism, and teaching. In addition, 41 Tesla STEM students participated in the expo, and a number of students earned awards in the 3D printing category for their biomed work. So that's just a little bit of an update and recognition on some of the fabulous STEM work that's happening in our high schools. And shifting gears a little, now I also wanted to highlight another source of pride for the district, which is our Transition Academy. And the board will recall that we had a special presentation as part of last board meeting regarding the Transition Academy. And just last week, Michael Konopasek from King 5 was at Transition Academy to interview the coordinators and teachers in the program, including Richard Haynes. They provided Michael with a history of the program, the need for it, and general information about how the program works. One of the students, Alma, talked about what she liked about the program, and they got some footage of her working at Mod Pizza and her mother talking about the growth that she's seen in her daughter and how much that it's meant to them to have the program after high school. The story was scheduled to run on Monday. We haven't seen it yet, but we expect and hope that it will run sometime this week. And as you know, the Transition Academy graduation is this week on Thursday evening, and some board members will be able to attend. And it's always a really wonderful celebration of what Future Ready looks like for our students in the Transition Academy. Finally, I wanted to just touch on briefly the fact that, as expected, the 30-day special session was only the first special session of the 2015 legislature, and they will have at least one more session, which is required. On May 28th, Governor Inslee ordered a second special session to begin on May 29th. It's limited to 30 days, although they may adjourn before that, anytime before that deadline, if they can get the decisions made. An additional 30-day session may also be called if necessary. And the main priority, as we all know, and the only real requirement, is the adoption of a new 2-year operating budget. The current biennial budget expires at midnight on June 30th. And if a budget's not adopted by that deadline, a partial state government shutdown will begin on July 1st. State agencies are already making contingency plans and are preparing to send temporary layoff notices to employees should the legislature fail to adopt a new budget. As a district, we are monitoring cash reserves to ensure that our July payroll obligations can be made. And currently there are no plans currently to issue temporary layoff notices to district employees. While the legislature has not completed the work, we're still required by law to present a budget to our board, and we've been doing that work throughout the spring to follow our regular annual budget and strategic planning process, and that was the part of the focus of our study session earlier tonight. And so we are planning to present a budget to the board at the June 22nd meeting.
And I think to piggyback on that, and part of the conversation that we had about that is that that budget more than likely will not be the real budget because the legislature won't be completed. If their work is completed, obviously that will be the case. But we also have some plans for if that's, normally we would have it presented at that meeting, have July as the month for comments and from the public, and then have a public hearing in August and then adopt the budget. And we're with that possibility that we wouldn't have that budget that we normally would have in June, then we're looking at adding another meeting in August so we could do a presentation at the beginning of the month and then approve it later. Just feeling that the public really should see the impacts, since we have not a clue yet about some of the impacts that might be coming out of the legislature. Do you have any more updates other than there they are, speaking of them?
I think Dr. Pierce gave a pretty good summary of what's going on. It's just a wait and see. Always feel free to write them, remind them. It'd be great to have a budget before June 30th.
Well, not just a budget, but a budget that supports the work that we're trying to do in this district.
For sure. And it's not really legislation, but we had meetings this last week with the City of Kirkland and then also with the City of Redmond council members and staff, just beginning with Redmond. We've done this previously in Kirkland, just keeping the lines of communication open, discussing mutual concerns and issues that affect both of us, and and City of Sammamish is coming up on Friday.
All very positive, and a very good beginning thing of looking at comprehensive planning and different things that where our work overlaps and being able to succeed at collaboration.
And the plan is to do those at least twice, if not 3 times a year with the cities. So it's just calendaring that gets to be a little bit of a job. Any other board follow-up or future agenda items or debriefing comments? Mark?
Last week I had the honor of attending the special presentation at the Futures class over at Juanita High School, and they had, for cancer, their cancer fund, or for their cancer research fundraising, they had set a goal for themselves of $10,000 to raise. And the Futures class, for those of you who don't know, they are not composed of, it's not composed of kids that could just go and ask mom and dad for a check. These kids hustled their tails off. Bake sales, you name it, they did it. Their goal was $10,000, and they were so proud of themselves, they made $10,050.
Oh, good for them, yes. Very good.
Also attending there that day was Congresswoman Susan Del Bene, and she was very impressed with the whole group. and was very impressed with the whole program, I think, and came away with a very good impression of Juanita High School and the group. I must say that one of the students pulled me aside and was saying how difficult a time he was having getting accommodations with his classes, not only the assignments, but also accommodations for testing. And I said, excuse me, but there's a lady right over here that can help you. And we pulled over the assistant principal, and I had the two of them chat there, and they're going to continue that chat because the young man was definitely adrift. But it just shows the active involvement that the associate principals, assistant principals have when they are presented with a problem.
Okay. With board member comments, so you do have the calendar for the upcoming year before you, and if you have any date issues, could you please let Diane know? We've looked at fitting these around holidays, and I think we got them all covered to make sure that we don't do that. And then our March study session that we do the extended one, we've accommodated that, so we should meet everybody's obligations that folks had indicated that they had in the month of March. So hopefully but if you see something that doesn't seem that would work or something else interferes, let us know. So hearing nothing else at the moment, the next board meeting is June 22nd. Get my little piece of paper over, with a 5 p.m. Study session on capital planning and community and comprehensive community engagement at 5, and then at 7 will be our board meeting here. It's actually our July board meeting is taking place at the end of June, and we will not have a board meeting in the month of July. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second, please. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.